This probably won't be the quality that the rest of the good old content is, but I am willing to let you know that I just don't have the same materials to work with, so this is probably a little watered down. But that's fine. That's fine. I still delivered after like nearly a month, but that's okay. Enjoy. Whew. Well, alright, boys and girls, let's go on ahead and get this out of the way. RE8 came out on the 7th of May, and I'm doing this shit at the end of the month because it really took me a long time doing 2 standard runs and then typing up the script and making sure I'm being extremely thorough on how I play the game and making sure I'm not doing anything wrong, so there's that. But yes, that game came out on that day, and the entirety of the goddamn Resident Evil community took and had a crackhead episode for its release, and everyone was legitimately excited since we got to see this faceless bastard again. And I bought it, or in this case, Clutch pre-ordered the game so I can have it a day before everybody, to bring you this humble review. So you boys and girls go on ahead and strap in for this roller coaster of a finger losing, of an arm losing, of a body shooting fun review. Let's get into it. Alright, time to talk about the story. Oh, when it comes to the story of Resident Evil 8, there really isn't a whole lot to be known, really. The story takes place quite some time after Resident Evil 7, and the Winters have taken and moved out of Europe out of fear that their newborn daughter would be assassinated by the US government, because that honestly sounds like some American shit would happen, you know? Because, you know, the US is like, let me go on ahead and assassinate this baby out of fuck, I stuttered, so it doesn't even matter anymore. And said place, where a hot steaming pot of literal fucking cheese is a famous food, Ethan proceeds to lose his pinky finger because Buddy must have had some standards on not eating rings. But now Ethan has to search for his mutilated daughter and put her back together like she's a fucking Lego character. But to be perfectly honest, as far as story goes, it's pretty much just like RE7 in some regards. Go save family, get fucked up and not have to go to a psych ward afterwards. But the story keeps its relevancy throughout the entire game because you know what you have to do, kids? You know what? That's right, kids. Read every single file in the game. That's right. That's right. Good job. Good job. Good job. But even without reading every file in the game, you still really get what the story is at its core. It's not very overbearing or complicated or anything like that. If anything, it's pretty simple at best. If you fit it in chronologically before the events of the game, like RE8 would somewhere take place like before RE1. And I don't mean like RE8 itself, since like before the events of RE8 takes place in like fucking 1950s or some shit. I don't know, dude. But in my humble opinion, it's probably one of the more weaker Resident Evil stories, comparing it to Resident Evil 4 and 2 and 3. To be perfectly honest, the story kind of moves at a rather decent pace since it isn't very deep or complicated in any real aspect. But from what I've noticed, RE8 really does take a whole lot from Resident Evil 1, it seems like, rather than 4, besides the attache case and all that good stuff. The reason I say this is because it just feels like everything is very cold, dark, and fucked up. And not just morally fucked up, but just fucked up in general. For example, Lady Dimitrescu took and infected some rotting corpses of girls, and they literally took and became fucking fly people. Do you not know how nasty that is? That is like some RE1 Chimera shit. Like, I'm not joking. Like, you think I'm joking? This part of the video is not scripted. This is a tangent at this point. Do you not know how nasty that is? And here you people are taking and simping for fly pussy. You all are filthy. I am genuinely disappointed in you all. That is disgusting. There's a thin line between a decent fetish and fucked up. And you don't blur that line. You don't. I am legitimately upset. Alright, it's time to talk about gameplay, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to be a little long-winded on. I will say right now that the gameplay feels so damn good in this. I love what RE8 did is that it fixed a lot of the issues I had with RE7, and I am forever grateful for that one. A lot of my issues from RE7 stem from the frustrating shit they put in the game, like the cheesy scare factor and stuff. I'll go on ahead and I'll start listing my issues with RE7. Let's go on ahead and go. Overall, the gameplay for RE8 is pretty nice, and like I said, it fixes a lot of the issues from RE7 that I greatly appreciate. The enemies are pretty well designed and are bullet sponges like molded are, but it's pretty alright. In the first quarter of the game, Lycans aren't really hard to deal with. It's just a matter of making sure how proficient you are when you move around and shoot them. Speaking of movement and shooting, Lycans can either be like super aggressive or just dumb as fucking bricks. Sometimes their AI just will shit itself and they'll, I don't know, do everything but what Lycans are supposed to do, like not hit you or just flat out miss. It's not to mention they wield weapons, which makes it a little more scary dealing with them because they do increase damage. Armored Lycans, on the other hand, are pretty alright to deal with varying on what situation you're in. They usually aren't alone. They typically have weaker, more beta male Lycans with them. One of the many gameplay elements I actually appreciate is the knockback mechanic. So after you guard, if you press L1 again, you'll knock them back. It's a good way to get enemies the hell off of you, since the game has this issue of putting you with 5 enemies and expecting you to get out with like a bunch of health afterwards. Oh, and another thing about knockback is that if you do it and like you hit an enemy and another enemy is like in the middle of an animation to grab you, they can grab you out of your knockback animation, which I don't like. I want my iframes. I also have these wolf type enemies, which you literally only fight 2 of, and one of them is optional. I mean, you could say the other one's optional too, but I killed both of them each time because, you know, gotta sell those body parts to the Duke. And the only reason I'm honestly mentioning them is that the game has this wolf motif going on and you only fight like 2 of them throughout the entirety of the game. And I mean, you fight them in mercenaries too, yeah, but I'm talking about like base game here. You honestly don't fight a whole lot of them throughout the entirety of the like main game. I mean, maybe if you play like Village of Shadows, but I heard Village of Shadows is shit. Another thing is that for some god-awful reason, there are certain animations you'd expect you to have iframes for, but you really don't. For example, I'll play a clip that my friend posted on Twitter. He was playing the Village of Shadows difficulty, and I think this is Village of Shadows. In the beginning area of the game, he had actually opened the door where you get to meet Eliza or whatever her name was. They were really like minor characters and they gave them names and everything, so I don't know why they did that. But he was opening the door in the middle of that animation, he winded up taking damage and he had to heal after the cutscene. So yeah, I don't know if it's just me, but another thing I noticed is that the game doesn't really give you a whole lot of lockpicks. Maybe I'm just not searching super thoroughly, which I really never really do. I mean, I search for what I can find, but I'm not getting on my hands and knees and looking for shit, I will say that. Like I said, there are a couple of areas I didn't fully explore, but on my second run, I did have an awful lot of lockpicks, I will say that much. Speaking of which, and speaking of lockpicks, and the one that you can buy if you pre-ordered the game, let's go ahead and talk about the Duke. I love the Duke. The Duke is probably my favorite character, like my most favorite character in the game. But you can murder animals and give these the animal meat to the Duke to get health upgrades. The only real thing that I really don't like about how they handle the upgrades in the game is that in RE7, in order to get like health upgrades, defense upgrades, and movement upgrades, it would really be confined to a single syringe that you would find lying around in any area of the game, pretty much. And the reason why I have an issue with this is that you have to find these animals, you have to take and slay them, please PETA forgive me, and you have to take them back to the Duke. The only way I can really describe this as an issue is that you have to find these animals, kill them, and then you have to take them all the way back to the Duke, or you be in the middle of an area of the game, and you have to find him or go back to him around that time. And it's a bit of a struggle. For example, in the Moreau section of the game, you do find chickens that you can take and kill, and you don't really find Duke's shop until like a little while afterwards. And I don't think that's until after you take and have your encounter with Moreau and you leave out to go get the power on to like drain out all of the water and start the Moreau boss fight. Because God forbid you have to take and drag your balls through grass to bring that shit to him, because boy, it is a bitch. But overall, in all honesty, it's a bit of a minor complaint, even though it sounds like super serious. So to go ahead and preface, I am going to be talking about the areas and how I felt about them, and I have some very strong opinions on them, to be quite honest. Well, to go ahead and start with Lady Dimitrescu's castle. For what it was a pretty standard run-of-the-mill starter area, really. It felt really nice. It had times where it was a bit spooky, and it really did give off some RE1 vibes, and I really do appreciate that one. Now, one part of it I am very strongly versed on is the roof of the castle. Just a heads up, I personally don't like the sniper rifle and those flying enemies in the game. You're expected to use it. Maybe it's just because I'm not a super good marksman, but you know, I'm pretty sure there's fucking elite, high-class gunsmen in the fucking comments, so Let's go on ahead and have that one happen. They expect you to shoot him from a distance, but I didn't find that very effective. I mean, I shot him with the round from a shotgun, and I pumped him full of pistol ammo. I mean, it worked out for what it was. Didn't die. Now, I do know that the entirety of the internet was horny for Lady Dimitrescu and her fly daughters. That is no lie. You can literally go on Twitter, type in Dimitrescu, and just, or tall vampire mommy, and literally just scroll down to see what results you get. It's that simple. But if I'm perfectly honest, Lady Dimitrescu was an extremely big letdown, and I'm going to explain why. The reason why I say Lady Dimitrescu is an extremely big letdown is because as much as a hyped up character she wasn't very hard to deal with in the game, and it was pretty simple to deal with her. She doesn't take any damage. She's exactly like Mr. X at her core, really. You shoot her in the head a couple times, do enough damage, she'll stun and sit still for a second, fix her hat, literally gives you a chance to run past her or run away from her. It's that simple. Another thing that's real simple is that Lady Dimitrescu doesn't move very fast, so if you take and you move like 2 rooms over, her AI will immediately just shit itself and she'll start walking around the opposite direction of where you went, so there's that. Another thing that's real simple is that since your main area in the game is like your most trafficked area in the entire game, you can just run in the Duke's shop until she runs off. It's not really all that threatening. But her daughters, on the other hand, Bella, Cassandra, and Daniela, I think. I probably get that wrong. They're all fucking white girl names, so who fucking cares? Her daughters, on the other hand, are extremely terrifying to deal with. You can't shoot them, or stun them, at least to my knowledge. You take consistent damage when their flies swarm you. That's pretty fucking scary, if I'm honest. If anything, Lady Dimitrescu would have been better off as just being a boss rather than being a stalker type character. She was obviously designed after Mr. X, not in terms of actual like character design, but in terms of AI and all that good shit. She was obviously designed after Mr. X on that part, whereas Mr. X, on the other hand, is a lot of more work to deal with since he pretty much shows up in areas you are in the game, and he acts as a really good traffic stopper. Dimitrescu can be dealt with in all of, I don't know, like 2 minutes tops. Like, you know, I panic when I see Mr. X. I'm like, oh shit, it's like Dimitrescu. Now, the castle boss was pretty simple for what it was. I enjoyed it. It was really nice. I really had a lot of fun doing that one boss in particular. I really liked that boss fight. But it did kind of like run its course after a while. I mean, it's pretty nice though. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I don't have an entirely strong opinion on Lady Dimitrescu's area of the game. I really just thought it was your run-of-the-mill area of the game. It wasn't anything for me to really mention for her area because it was just fine at best. Alright, now I'm going to go on ahead and talk about Benviento section, and this one's probably going to be a little bit of a hot take from me. Now, I'm going to be very blunt. This is probably my second least enjoyable area of the game, and I'm not even going to be fucking like, I'm not even going to like sugarcoat this shit. I don't like Benviento section, and that's just honest. I don't like it. This part of the game was really hard to talk about since everyone thought this area was like the Nesbeck's thing to slice bread, and everyone praised this area of the game very highly, and I don't blame them. I mean, you know, you're entitled to your opinion. You know, everyone has an asshole, just like how everyone has an opinion. But I wasn't really enjoying this area, not just on my first playthrough, but on my second playthrough. I didn't like it. This part of the game is so tiresome that it literally hurts. So basically, this entire section of the game is that you are walking and you are doing a puzzle. I shit you not. I kid you not. This entire area from start to finish. It might as well be a fucking puzzle. Like this entire damn area of the game. Might as well be a puzzle. And one of the puzzles you can't even solve until you look at the goddamn music box at the very beginning of the game when you're taking Rosemary to bed, which I am 100% sure no one thought to remember, and if you did, you're a fucking liar. Even though this area was extremely mundane and extremely dreary, getting chased by a fetus wasn't very entertaining for me. I mean, it freaked me out the first time around because it's like, oh fuck, a bloody fetus, you know, shit, oh damn, oh, a bloody fetus. This area was not very enjoyable for me. Not because I'm not shooting anything, because it takes all of like 15 minutes to do. Total. Boss included. If you can even call that a boss. It's not fun. I'm sorry for whoever liked it, but I personally didn't. I did not enjoy this area of the game. It was very, very strange. You have to take this shit apart. You have to gut a Mia doll apart in order to take and fucking, like, for anyone who enjoyed this section, I legitimately want to know, like, for anyone who actually die-hard fan of Resident Evil, I mean, I am too, but whoever really enjoyed this section of the game, I would love it if you would tell me in the comments probably, or anything like that, what you liked about this area of the game. What was it? I'm not going to debate you or anything. I'm just curious about everyone else's opinion. I didn't like it. I did not like this area of the game at all whatsoever. I could not. For every time, for both of the 2 runs I did, the 3 included since I beat it on hardcore of the making of this video, and each time was met with, man, Benviento section. Let's go on ahead and, I met this area with a lot of displeasure. I was expecting some really nice shit. I can't. I would love it if someone told me what they enjoyed about this game. Not this game, but this area of the game in particular. I really need to know. I want to know everyone's opinion. I need to. Just so I can make sure that even if I am with the minority, I can see why people enjoyed it. Now to time to talk about Moreau's section of the game. It wasn't as bad as Benviento's, but it's a little better than that. But I can safely say I didn't enjoy it too much, but it was nice for what it was. And to be perfectly blunt, and to be perfectly honest about Moreau, we really don't get to see what makes him special besides him being a giant fish. I mean, he's a fish. I can't take Moreau seriously. I can't take his area seriously, besides the fact he gives me fish for the upgrades. I appreciate that one, but overall, I can't take Moreau seriously. Not just as a character, but as a boss. Like, if I had to compare Moreau to Del Lago in RE4, I'd be loads scarier fucking Del Lago. Del Lago's like a fucking subterranean lizard that lives in a lake that eats people. Del Lago was more of a sweating fight than for anything in the game for me. I don't know what it is that... Why? What was it about Moreau's section that really didn't make it tick with me too well? I mean, while the boss itself was pretty standard, it was okay. I liked Moreau's boss fight. I mean, I can say that. It was a pretty nice boss fight. Real easy to cheese, I'll tell you that, but real nice boss fight. I digged. But what in the good goddamn, as Moreau as a character, am I supposed to fear? Is it because he's a sweaty fish person that looks real nasty and gross? I'd expect him to be on some pervert shit, honestly, if that's what he was gonna look like. I mean, that's what they sold him as. That's what they made him look like. A nasty pervert. I mean, Resident Evil isn't too keen. Actually, what the fuck am I kidding myself? Resident Evil's always on some weird shit. At least in one way or another. It's either through costumes, not dialogue, but through costumes or some secondary way. But I mean, he comes from a family of pharmacists, so you'd think I'd be walking through like some sort of like spooky hospital or like clinic or something, but no, I'm fighting a fucking fish. I mean, I can't. Moreau's section was a bit of a letdown. I'm sorry. And for the last section, which I absolutely despise more than Benviento section, takes the top 1 most hated areas of RE8 for Velvet Groove, of Velvet Groove Entertainment. I don't know why I said entertainment, but fuck it. But anyway, we're going to talk about Heisenberg section. I need to stop swearing. This section is probably my least favorite. While cool, my least favorite. The area starts off pretty alright, and it gets progressively worse as it goes on. The area just saps you of all of your resources in such a short amount of time that you barely have any to work with at the end of the game for the final boss. The enemies just take bullets like it's nothing. Even if you hit their weak spot, it's kind of hard to deal with them. The game is expecting you to clear out all of these areas for like the last bit of the last bit section of the game. That would be great if I had fucking ammo to use and utilize, and I wasn't scared of these drill people. I mean, the drill people themselves probably would have worked as a better boss than Propeller Head Man. That would have worked a lot better. But no, you fight like 4 of these bitches and like 2 full armored ones throughout the entire game. Now on my second run, I had a slightly easier time, but I still didn't enjoy the area. Like I said, the area saps you of all of your materials and all of your resources in such a short amount of time, and it's expecting you to clear out every area you go in. So by the time you hit an area now where you're fighting the full armored fucking people, you now have nothing to work with really. At that point, you're expected to juke and dodge like it's original RE2 and 3. Time for the final boss, or Miranda in this case. On my first run, I had a bit of a hard time. I had 1 heal. I had little to no ammo in both my pistol, shotgun, and sniper rifle. And I had little materials to work with. And I had like 3 shots of my Wolf's Bane Magnum. So yeah, the boss fight itself at its core it's pretty alright for what it is. It radiates big Final Fantasy energy, I'll say that. But anything else outside of that, I can't exactly complain about. I mean, overall, for what it is, the boss is nice. It's fun. It keeps you on your toes. It's kind of like at the end of a Resident Evil 2 remake when you're fighting Mr. X. It's nice. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you guessing. It's real neat. Only issue I have with the boss fight is that it can get a little sluggish and it overstayed its welcome, is what I'm trying to say. Is that the boss fight kind of lingers on, even though I get that it's a final boss on both standard and my hardcore runs of the game. I did 2 standard runs and I did 1 hardcore run, and the boss just kind of lingers around for a little too long for my liking. The only way you'll know when you're done with the boss fight is by picking out the dialogue that Ethan and Miranda share throughout the boss fight. So you'll know when you're done and when you're halfway done with the boss fight. Now, the reason why I'm saying it's imperative that you're super careful in Heisenberg section of the game, you need to be real careful in Miranda section too, because whatever you're left with in Heisenberg section, you're left with in the boss fight in Miranda's section of the game. And it's also imperative you have a lot of money too, because you're given one last chance to get some shit from the Duke. On my first run, I bought every single solitary first aid bottle herb juice that I could get early on in the game, so I didn't have any I could get except for 1 more, plus the one I had in my inventory. I couldn't make any more at that point, and I was already low on health. So yeah, just be super careful with what you do and don't mind my cough. Now now time to talk about a few sections of the game that were pretty alright. The village raid section at the beginning of the game is pretty alright. I enjoyed it. I loved it, both on standard and hardcore. It was fun. Now, actually no, who am I kidding? I didn't like it on hardcore because I really didn't know what to do, but I did learn how to cheese it. The area on hardcore is pretty alright. It's timed and not based on how many kills you get. Basically, a good way to cheese it is that first house you get to, not the shack you get to where you fight that first lichen. It's after you kill that first lichen and you walk out of that house. You go to that other house, you close the barricade, you grab everything in that house, you go back to that barricade, and you shoot all of those lichens once. Every time they're reeling up to hit that bookshelf, you wait. And anytime they wind up to hit the bookshelf, you shoot them again, and rinse repeat until you get to the other house or shack, and you rinse repeat it. Old Saint Nick can't get past it, and that's about it. But that area was pretty fun. Usually I noticed that the stuff I struggled with I wind up remembering the best of, and I wind up enjoying it a lot more. Another thing, Chris's section of the game was also pretty nice. Pretty much run and gun, real nice, digged it. Can't talk too much about that one. In conclusion, RE8 was a very entertaining game, and I loved playing it. It was the best fucking experience I've had since I don't know when.